Hi everyone, I'm finally doing my Westworld video and I'm glad I waited because the fourth season had just finished and it was blew my mind about how they're exactly telling us what this realm is and what we need to do. And if you haven't watched it, I recommend that you do. I'm not going to ruin it for you. I'm just going to go over some of the characters of who I believe they represent in mythology and how they all fit into the story, but I'm not going to tell you what happens. So you can watch the whole series. I watch it on Soap Today, like two, the number two. There's lots of pop-ups that come up, maybe 5 or 6 of them at the beginning, but then you can watch it for free. Okay, you can just Google that, YouTube. Just Google Soap Today, and you'll find it. So let's get into this. Okay, so the beginning of the show always starts off with this kind of weird intro with these androids being made from inside some type of white latex bath. And that just the intro is really interesting. And you'll see it here on the back of the picture. They have like a Western scene, like a mountain scene. And that's because a lot of Western shows were made at that location. And I'll go into the history of why they chose that location. This is an important video to watch because I'm going to go and map out all the eclipses in the near future and also why a Venus conjunction with an eclipse is so important. It all kind of ties into the show because the main character represents Venus. Her name is Dolores, and the whole theme is showing us about eclipses in the intro of the show, and they show us in other places, which I'm going to show you. So I really wanted to map out eclipses, and I found some esoteric information about the importance of eclipses, and not so much eclipses, but Venus moon eclipses. Okay, so when Venus and the moon conjunct, and when it happens on eclipse, it's even more rare. Okay, so there's a few that are coming up actually soon, and I wanted to go into that because when I started to map them out, I couldn't find any other one except in 2053. So they're really, really rare, and they're happening soon. So you want to stick to the end of the video, and I'll show you when they're happening. But let's first get into the whole, theme of the show and what it's trying to teach us. The show was based off of another show called Westworld, and they had a sequel called Future World in 1976, and that is actually 76 always reminds me of Capricorn because the 76 symbol for Capricorn, right? The symbol looks like a 76, and it was the year of the dragon. So anyhow, that year always sticks out to me because there was Olympics in Montreal. And now, I haven't watched this Future World, I'm going to, but that's what this show is based off of. Now we know the Fool card represents the number 22, right? So the 22 tarot cards and the Fool being the 0 card, so it's the 22nd card. The filming for the series pilot episode took place during 22-day period. So 22, the magic number. They recorded the show in August 2014 around Los Angeles and also this Moab, Utah. Now, Moab is a word that has popped up a lot in the 17th letter movement. So I was kind of curious when I saw that. And this is a location where they've done lots of different Western movies in the past. And so the whole theme is always showing this mountain. And flat top mountains are known historically in the indigenous cultures that they were like sacrifice mountains. Like, they were sacrificing, their children and stuff to the gods on flat top mountains. They're always kind of like considered to be like tables. Now, when you do etymology for Moab, it comes out to Lord of the Flies and also Satan, also known as the fallen angels. And this was interesting, the Lord of the Opening. Now, the reason that that's interesting is because their world does open up. Okay, that door opens. So when they were filming, Venus was conjunct with Jupiter in Cancer. Okay, the sun was just coming out of the Lion's Gate, by Regulus, and Mars was by the Shambhala star, and Saturn was in Libra. Venus and Mars are the main characters in the movie. Now, this is interesting. The same mountain was used on one of the songs that they put on the Voyager golden disc for future aliens to be able to understand humanity. This was actually, I think in 1977, they put the first Voyager out and they put this song on that disc. Dark Was the Night by Blind Willie Johnson. This was weird. They had a fire on the set on May in 2019, and the only thing left standing was the white church. So this is how they make the androids into humans. They kind of revive them and they heal them in this white latex. Okay, now when I started to see the symbolism, they're showing it's like milk all the time through the beginning for the first episode or the first the first season. They're showing white milk quite frequently through the show. So I started to, I'm always curious, and I started doing research on Asclepius. And Asclepius is really Ophiuchus, right? He's the guy that was healing Orion, and then Zeus got mad and then killed Asclepius and put him up into the constellations because he was bringing humans back to life. Okay, so there's this, they're relaying this, theme. Okay, so bringing somebody back to life has to do with Asclepius. Now, Asclepius, and you can see here, the rod of Asclepius is similar to the caduceus, which is used for healing. So he was like bringing people back from the dead because the plant that he was using was the Asclepius plant, which is called milkweed. This is why it all ties into the milk in the show and why they're lying in milk. And it's like a latex that comes out of the milkweed. It also has, comparable to orchids, it has 5 petals, so we get the Venus link there with the 5. And it talks about the corona is composed of 5 paired hood and horn structures, with the hood acting as a sheath for the inner horn. Glands holding the pollinia are found between the hoods. The size, shape, and color of the horns and the hoods are often important identifier characteristics of the species. Anyhow, so you got the corona, you got the hood, which is kind of like, the hood is like the hermit that wears the hood, the person that has the knowledge, right? So that's amazing because when I was doing the research, yeah, he puts the people to sleep and then it makes them appear that they're dead. But what he's done is the milkweed is kind of like a poison and it can kind of slow your heart rate down. So almost like Romeo and Juliet, the whole thing where she seems like she's drugged, but she's just really asleep. It's similar to that. So it gives the impression that you've died and you come back to life. And then Zeus didn't like that, so he killed Asclepius for doing that because humans are not allowed to be immortal, according to Zeus. And milkweed just so happens to be one of the only plants that monarch butterflies feed off of. So the whole symbolism with the monarch butterfly, and Ophiuchus, the shape of the constellation they say is like a moth, but it's funny because maybe moths feed off of it as well, but it's just that whole symbolism of the butterfly is transformation, right? So Ophiuchus rules the 8th house of transformation with Scorpio, And yeah, you're transforming into the butterfly because of this, because of Asclepius and the milk. So it's always the milk and honey. So the milk puts you to sleep. And that's what your parents would tell you when you're a little kid, right? Oh, you're having trouble sleeping? Go drink a glass of milk. So it's so ingrained in our culture. Like milk makes you sleepy. Here's more pictures of them showing like the white latex milk. At one point, one of the characters dies in the milk. And this theme happens over and over again because it's like they're on Groundhog Day. So the main character, Dolores here, drops the milk, and then her boyfriend, Teddy, picks it up. And sometimes it's somebody else that picks it up, but I zoomed in on that can of milk, and well, it's a can called condensed milk. I was wondering, like, why do they keep showing her dropping this can? It must mean something. So sure enough, it's the milk. So Dolores sees everything beautiful. She sees the world as a splendid, I think her term was nature's splendor. Okay, and that's her boyfriend Teddy. So he represents Mars and she represents Venus. She also turns into Persephone in the show because she gets dragged off and gets raped. And so it's interesting because Persephone, I guess, is a kind of form of Venus when she goes into the underworld, right? So there's that aspect. And then I just find it interesting that they kind of look like they have like, um, a building here or an obelisk in the middle of the android. So that always, I'm curious when I see that because it always reminds me of the Washington Monument. At the beginning of the show, they always have the train pulling into Westworld. And now this is like a make-believe world. It's kind of like Fantasy Island, and humans are coming in and acting with these androids that don't know they're not human. Okay, so the humans in this instance are kind of like the gods, and the androids, that are called hosts, are kind of like us. So in the first series, that's the way it's set up, and like later on, it sets up that when they go into our world, they become like the gods and the humans are like the slaves. Okay, so it changes roles as the series goes on. But I just wanted you to know that. So the beginning of the show where they have this train coming in, it always has the number 5 on it, right? Because that's Venus for the pentagon or the pentagram. The last episode is called Que Sera Sera, which is whatever will be, will be. And they go back, she goes back in time, okay? And so that last show is showing the train again. It's like the reloop. Here are some of the characters. We have the man in black. He's really Pluto. Dolores is Venus. Then we have Arnold. I see him as like Enki. And then we have Charlotte. I had her a series, but I really think she's Saturn. Okay, she's the female Saturn. Then Logan is Dionysus because he's drunk all the time. Bernard, again, is Enki or the messenger. He's kind of like Mercury, the messenger of the gods. And then Robert Ford, Anthony Hopkins, he's like Enlil. He's the creator of Westworld. And then Maeve is really Ceres because she has a daughter. She's kind of like the mother of Persephone, right? She's always lost. She can't find her daughter. So so I had mixed it up because I had done this at the very first episode. So anyhow, that's the way I see these characters. There's other ones, obviously. There's tons of characters, but I just want you to see these ones. Now, Enlil would be like Jupiter, right? Jupiter is like Enlil. Okay, so I found this that Trump Jr. was wearing this T-shirt about Jupiter. He has the Jupiter lowlife T-shirt on. Anyhow, yeah, Jupiter is the lowlife, okay, because he's the god of this realm that keeps you trapped here. And Bernard is his assistant, but Bernard ends up kind of realizing his role as one of the White Walker guys in the back there. And he ends up saving or, changing the timeline, helping save the timeline, because for years he's like in this trance and he can see the future and see the past. So he's kind of like the prophet, right? Because he can see all the different scenarios, all the different timelines, and he basically, communicates this and helps people make right decisions with their free will because he can figure out the timelines. So with his mind, he's basically Mercury. Mercury and Enki. The guy in the top is the guy in the bottom's stepfather who funds the whole park. Now the guy in the top there, he ends up becoming the devil. And the other guy's name is William. So it's Will I Am. And he falls in love with Dolores, the host. Okay, he has like a connection with her. And there's Teddy, her boyfriend, Mars. Okay, so this character is interesting because she has like a snake on her, and they talk about it here. So her name is Ingrid. And Sweetwater is the western town this is all happening. And I always find Sweetwater like the milk and honey. The Sweetwater is the honey. And is instrumental to the maze that the man in black is seeking. Okay, so the man in black ends up being William. Okay, I'm gonna kind of drop that. That kind of gives you a heads up. This tattoo that she has, she's a raider. She kills them and using their blood to tattoo a snake up her body. This would be the Kundalini snake up her body, and she's fearless, right? And it comes up into her eye, into her right eye. This guy is funny because he's a human and he has like a guilty conscience, but he ends up peeing on the whole android world. Okay, so the urine again, and I see that as Ganymede, right? So that would be Aquarius. Ganymede is the young boy that Zeus kidnaps to become his cupbearer, to bring him the nectar of the gods. And I just recently found out that that nectar that he was bringing him was honey wine. Okay, so there we get the milk and honey connection. This character gets trapped in a cave with chains, and so she would represent Andromeda. The first season is called The Maze, the second, The Door, and the third, The New World. I'm not sure what the fourth one was called. This is the maze that they're looking for, and it's in a box with the word pig on it. So it's like, we're the pigs, we're the swines, basically, because we're dumb, and so are they. The hosts don't know that they're not real. They don't know that they're being killed and then brought back to life with their memories wiped. So they're trying to figure out what this maze is, and it has an all-seeing eye in the middle of it. The maze is a theme through all of the show, all of the series. Okay, so it's not just the first one. It comes up again later. So it represents freedom, and this would be the whole mythology in the constellation Taurus, with the maze and, Ariadne having to help Theseus to go in and kill the bull that's inside the middle of the labyrinth, the maze, right? So it's referencing us getting out of this re-loop trap. Okay, that's what the maze represents. It's like once you can find your way out, then you're free. And that's why the second season is called The Door, okay? Because you need to find the door. And they show how the door opens. If you keep your eyes peeled, you'll find the all-seeing eye in different places. And if you notice on the left there, they show the fire and water symbols, the upside-down triangle and the pyramid. Fire and water is Leo and Cancer, right? The two pillars. In between the two pillars is where you want to be, the middle path. The maze shows up again. Here they're talking about the vast group of hosts began following Ghost Nation, which Akachita lead them to a place where they believed they found the door. Dolores explains to William that they were merely searching for a place where they could live in peace away from the humans. While navigating through the forge, Bernard and Loris discover that Ford, that would be Anthony Hopkins, had created a virtual Eden for hosts to live free. A new server fired up and tore the fabric of reality, opening the door. Hosts were passed through, uploaded their consciousness to the valley beyond, leaving their bodies behind. Under the supervision of Eclipses and the Ghost Nation, they're like natives, the door allowed various hosts to pass through. Eventually, however, the incoming hosts were thrown into chaos by the passage of a virus-infected Clementine Pennyfeather. The door was closed for good by Dolores, who believed the valley beyond to be just another false promise. But it really isn't. And she learns later it isn't. But anyhow, so here they are going towards the door, and it's opening up, and then you see the Ghost Nation, the natives know how to go through. It's always at sunset, okay, when the door opens. I've found that out. Dan Winters explains esoterically what happens at the sunset. This is when the phase conjunction happens and the sun is aligning, in this perfect spot where you can actually, get into this higher consciousness. I like how they have the hand on there, which all ties into pi. I've explained that before in past videos. And then they go through, one of them runs through the door, and his body starts to fall. See how he's got two bodies, one's falling, the other one drops off the cliff. Exactly like the Fool card, right? That you jump off the cliff. So they're showing you jumping off the cliff. So they lose their old body and gain a new one. Then they see Clementine on the horse, and she's infected now to create chaos. And one of the Charlotte says, oh, well, we don't need 4 horsemen, we only need 1. So she's riding a white horse. So she represents the Antichrist. Riding a white horse is the Antichrist. It's interesting, her name's Clementine, which is like for clemency. And then her name's Pennyfeather. And, like in the It movie, they have Pennywise. I don't know why they use penny. It must be because of the copper. But anyhow, the whole thing is they're showing the natives become free, and this kind of symbolism to the Antichrist on the white horse. You want to ride the pale horse, the horse of many colors, like in The Wizard of Oz. So as soon as she passes by, people start fighting with each other instead of walking towards the door. They don't go to the door anymore. So then the chaos, order out of chaos is the theme, because chaos creates more governments to want to put more lockdowns. So, you think you're doing something good by creating chaos and fighting, but you're actually creating the duality, which ends up creating more prison-like living. There's even a symbol called the sacred chaos, so it's kind of like the Garden of Eden there, and then you got the pentagon shape. Here they're using the Poe symbol. It looks like Aquarius. So chaos has a principal discordia, right? Principal discordia ties into how the West was lost. So it's not a surprise that this is all about chaos and, the polarity between the hosts and the humans, and how their worlds are falling apart because of the chaos. And this all ties into how the West was lost because it's Westworld. They're actually referencing Poe law, all tying into the Trump administration. How people start believing a certain way, and it's all because of discord and, discordia, right? This is all about discordia. That's why Discord is where all the Trump supporters are. It's all part of the game. It's to create the chaos. I just listened to Jordan Peterson, who is a university professor. 2 days ago, he just posted Back Away. He did this essay and he read it out loud, how, more chaos is going to come because the elite are making the poor poorer. So of course more chaos is going to come. And that's how, everything's going to change by more chaos. But it's a trap, okay? Because the more chaotic it gets, the more they're going to come locking you down more. So it's like, but it's part of the show, right? It's part of the game. It's like people have to purge out their their egos to want to fight this, right? It's more about really what you want to do is just non-compliance. Don't get angry, stay in bliss, but just don't comply. So in the human world, there's two computers. One is from two different brothers, right? So again, it's like Enki and Enlil. One brother wanted everything to be in conformity and that everybody is doing groupthink, everybody's thinking the same. And his other brother wanted it to be more like free will and kind of like almost a little bit insane, but allowing it to have its freedom to kind of grow where it wanted to. And he has a nosebleed. Okay, he's a little bit like the oddball, and they battle on which computer is going to run humanity. Now it's weird. Um, it's like the humanity of the host, right? It's like they're controlling, everything's being controlled by these two computers. So what's weird is the nosebleed thing, okay? Because I've seen this symbolism in so many different places, and I actually will do a video on it. And I do think it has to do with ascension and what's going to happen to our bodies. So I'll go into that another time. I'm jumping all over the place because I don't want you to know the story. I just want you to see the symbolism. So the last season, they had the Olympiad, is where Dolores is doing all the programming for the human world. Now Charlotte, who I believe is Saturn, she mentions about the man in black getting his testicles removed. Okay, so he was, castrated in a way. He was like, she had him locked up there. So it's all this story about, Saturn taking over Uranus, right? So it's the mythology of that, and they mention like the castration. So it's like, okay, that's what that's about. It's kind of, once you know the mythology, like you can follow along really well. So that was him in the human form, and then she's going to go. She had created an android that looked like him, and she has to go fight him. And here she's going to fight him, but if you notice, she's starting to turn into a reptile. Her skin is starting to have the markings. So this is actually in the real world, like the human world, and now there's another door opening, and it looks like it's at like the Hoover Dam or something. I don't know where this location is, but um, it's like a dam. So anyhow, he's there and he's in black, and he's now riding a black horse, but he represents Pluto, Hades, right, the god of the underworld, which is all to do with fear. And he was working with Saturn, and they both ruled this realm together. And you can see him coming out of the underworld right now, and he's going to go meet Saturn. And when he meets her, he decides that he wants to be in charge, and they have a battle. But before the battle, he goes to the board to change the dam. But there you have the 12, they're showing you the zodiac, right? So what they're saying here is that Pluto and Saturn, when they conjunct, there's going to be a battle. And we know that this is going to happen on the spring of 2024 when we have the great American eclipse. Okay, that's the other eclipse that's going across the United States. Pluto and Saturn are conjuncting in around that timeline, okay, in 2024. Because that's when Pluto enters Capricorn, that's ruled by Saturn, the same position of the founding United States. Pluto was in Capricorn. So Saturn wins, and then she basically says, I'm going to give Dolores the chance now to do what she can, use her own free will. Okay, so now Saturn turns to be out to be the good person, which is, he has those two roles, right? He's the devil, but he's also the god of the golden age. So they did the flip. Each android host has a pearl, okay, and that is their consciousness. It's all their memories. And the pearl represents the rebirth of Venus, right? She comes through on a shell in Botticelli's painting, right? And she gets blown into the shore on the foam of the sea, which is Uranus's castration, because his balls were thrown into the ocean by Saturn. And she comes in, she's reborn, right? So she gets reborn with Saturn. So she's going to help her get reborn now, right? And this is all part of this pearl, is to understand the symbol of the pearl is your consciousness being reborn. So here's Charlotte, Saturn, her she's opening up her face, and that's the pearl. Right at the end of the show, she's opening it up and taking the pearl. And this is the human world, our world, all being controlled by these towers, which is kind of like 5G. And people get, zombied. They get a message, and the message is, okay, chaos is happening now, and so you need to kill each other. So everybody goes crazy and kills each other because they're being controlled by the frequency or the media. Now, this guy, he represents Mars. Okay, he fights himself. He was actually in the military, but he's at war with himself. Okay, so he was a war hero, and then later on, he's like fighting himself all the time. And Mars rules the house of self, right? So you are at war with yourself. Now, this is his daughter, and she's a free human living off grid in like remote area, and they're just trying to survive, but they're like in war mode all the time. And so that represents the humans that are just like are awakened, but are trying to just live away from the whole grid system of the lockdown, of the frequency lockdown. Her girlfriend is her lover. Now, Mars is the father of the Amazonian women. Okay, so this would represent them being like these tough women that are living off grid in remote areas, and that's her dad. Okay, so they're the Amazonian women. Dolores finds the maze in the new world, and this helps her awaken. Then she remembers herself from the Westworld version of herself. Okay, right between the two of them, there's like an angel, okay, on the windowsill, which I found relevant. Often she has reference to, I need to remember. I need to remember, what this is all about, so that my memory doesn't keep getting wiped. And she says, now I can see the future. I can see the past. Like, it's all about your memory. And Teddy is there with her, but he starts to kind of glow and he becomes ascended. I'm not going to tell you why or how or whatever, but it's part of the ascension process. I just wanted to show you that. And again, he starts to ascend, so they show the hand, okay? And then his hand starts to become illuminated. It's always the hand, right? Take my precious hand. Take my hand, precious Lord. This is, or take my precious hand. It's always like, take my hand, right? You want your hand references reaching out to the beyond. Now, he says to her, come meet me in the sublime. Okay, the sublime is like, that's the beyond. Okay, that's where he is. At one point, she goes there and she says to her friend is there, and she says, where am I? She goes, oh, I'm beyond the wall in the place where nobody knows me. Okay, so there's this other realm, right? And it's paradise. And she's talking to her friend, and her friend tells her, look at this tree. Look at this tree. It's not about the branches. It's not about, the top of the tree. It's about the bottom of the tree where everything's connected. How many times have I said that? It's the roots that you want to connect with, right? Not the branches of the tree where your beliefs are, your leaves that fall to the ground, okay? And branches break. You want to connect to the underground where everything is connected. Okay, so she tells her that, look at all the beauty in the world. Stop connecting to the chaos, connect to the good in the world. And then Dolores remembers that, oh, right, that's what I have to do. Stop wanting to fight. Then she remembers that she has to go back and change the timeline. Okay, so she has to go back to the Westworld where it all began, and she has to start to change the way she reacted, so that way the timeline changes. Okay, so Dolores' name is Christina, which is like Christ-like, right? Actually, that was my mother's name. She was born on Christmas Day, Christina. Here's what Christina says at the end of the episode. Sentient life on Earth has ended. Hosts and humans left on Earth are goners, she says, or she adds. But some part of it might still be preserved in another world, my world. There's time for one last game, a dangerous game, with the highest of stakes, survival or extinction. This game ends where it began, in a world like a maze that tests who we are, that reveals what we are to become. Maybe this time we'll set ourselves free. Okay, so this is like, whoa. And they're not sure. They're saying here, August 14th, Westworld co-creator Lisa Joy told Deadline she and her husband, Jonathan Nolan, hadn't yet been informed whether the show would be renewed for season 5. I hope so, because it's going to show you how to, change the timeline. So that'll be interesting. But there's some other quotes that was spoken. Teddy said a few really good things that I want to tell you, because I think this is all relevant to what's happening now and our consciousness, and how we have to stop wanting to fight, right? It's not, he talks about let go of your pain. He says to her, let go of your pain, let go of your memories, just let go of it. And he says, this world is not meant for you and me. We're supposed to go to this other world. Okay, it's always about building the other world. This is what they're trying to say all the time. And you build it in your imagination. You have to believe it to see it, not see to believe. You have to believe to see. Teddy said in one of the shows, he said, the people that made us, sometimes it feels like it's all a dream. And then he says to Dolores, you are my cornerstone, because she's the love, right? So love is the cornerstone. And then Dolores says, my world has left me clues to help me wake myself up. That's how I feel. I feel like all my life, like I've known this, but I didn't know it. But I left clues to help me understand it. And she says to understand what she was capable of. The maze is a map of consciousness, always searching for the thing, and once found, you can make sense of this world. It always feels like you're searching for something. My whole life, I felt like I was searching for something, and I couldn't find it. Okay? And then she says, one last loop around the bend. Maybe this time we'll set ourselves free. Yeah, and so then it says, reveals what we are to become. Yeah, this I mentioned this already. And what else? I think that was it. Yeah, he just says, let go and meet me in the sublime. Okay, so that's what we have to do, guys. We have to believe, get out of the chaos, stop being angry, let go of all the pain, let go of the frustration, let go of the ego that you want to be right, all that. It all has to be released so that you can be the creator of this new paradise where, because this world, it seems, has like an expiry date, right? It has to reset itself. And I do believe that happens from the sun. Okay, so there's no like hanging on and trying to convince people to wake up when they don't want to wake up. And there's no point believing politically this can change what's happening on the sun. How are politics going to? So all you can do is just let go and say, okay, I'm in good hands, and everything's going to be fine because I believe it to be fine. Here's some of the other songs that they had on the Voyager. And one of the songs was the Morning Star, right? So it all ties into Venus and the Devil Bird. And yeah, so I found that interesting because they're telling you, yeah, this is all about the Morning Star, Venus. And this is some of the songs that they used in the show. there's the main theme song, which is kind of creepy but nice at the same time. There's Runaway, Radiohead's No Surprises, Fake Plastic Trees, exit music for a film, Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun. That's the one that, like, that's an eclipse. Okay. The Rolling Stones, Paint It Black. They also use Amy Winehouse, Back to Black. Something I Can Never Have. Okay, so Back to Black, it's about understanding that black is a teacher. Okay, it's like the Pluto is the man in black. It's your fears, it's your inner working, it's your soul, it's all your baggage, right? That you got to cleanse out, and you got to, like, be kind to it so that you can release it. So for sure in the first season, the intro had this eclipse. Okay, and it's eclipse with the ring, right? It's the diamond ring eclipse. This is a total eclipse. Okay, so like when I saw that, I was kind of like, okay, this is really important. The eclipse. The guy that created the computer, he looks at his watch, and to me, it looks like an eclipse. They kind of transposed his watch into this is like the computer. And so it's like the computer is like opening up a portal when the eclipse happens. I don't know, but it's, kind of weird that they keep showing the eclipse. So there's partial eclipse, annual eclipse, and total eclipse. The name annular comes from the Latin word for ring, annulus. Now, the ring is interesting because Venus's orbit is a ring. It's not oval, it's actually a circle. These eclipses are named for the darkest or maximum point, even if it has lasts less than a second. And the characteristic ring of fire is visible from even just one location. The whole eclipse is called an annual solar eclipse. However, in most places and most of the duration, an annual eclipse looks like a partial solar eclipse. This is also the case for total solar eclipses that for the rare hybrid solar eclipse, which have an annual maximum point in some locations, a total maximum point in other locations. So that's a lot of jargon for eclipses, but I was just curious about the name annular because it reminds me of Anu, and it's the ring of fire. I like that the fact that the eclipse is called the ring of fire because that symbolism and lingo is used a lot. So now we know it's an eclipse. So it's a diamond ring, and it's also the ring of fire. The Venus tablet of Amisaduqa is really interesting because they're talking about how they were mapping out the Venus cycles, all tying to lunar dates. So it's like Venus and the moon conjunctions. And they said these positions are given for a period of 21 years. So I was just like, okay, well, if there's like tablets, ancient tablets, where they're mapping out Venus lunar conjunctions instead of the pentagon or the pentagram, when Venus conjuncts the sun is creating the pentagram, right? But this is the first time I've ever heard of the mapping out Venus conjuncting the moon. Okay, so I was like, okay, well, that obviously happens, once a month. So what's the big deal? So then I was thinking, well, maybe it's when Venus kisses the moon. So sometimes when the new moon is really close to Venus, right on the ecliptic, it kisses her. Okay, so Venus kissing the moon. I was like, I wonder if this ever happens during an eclipse. Okay, so I was like, that would be like really esoteric, and it would be all about like the birth of Jesus, right? Because Venus is like the Virgin Mary, and then, tying into Jesus because it's all to do with love, and then the manger of Christ is in Cancer, which is the moon. Okay, so it's like the birthing of Jesus. right, is to do with Venus and the moon. So I was like, okay, now I've got to figure this out to see if there's any eclipses which this is happening. And there is. It's happening in a couple of months from now, in October. But first I want to explain the Venus cycle, right? She's the evening star for 263 days. And then she does like a retrograde, right? She goes, you know, she's trying to catch up to the sun, and then she gets in front of the sun, and then she back and retrogrades and gets behind the sun. And that makes her turn into Lucifer. And that takes like 50 days for that to happen. She does this kind of loop off the ecliptic and then comes around and then loops back. Okay? But when she's moving direct and she catches up to the sun again, she does that for they say 8 days, but it's like 8 to 9 days. Okay, 9 being like the magic number, right, for ascension. And that happens, she's on her last days of being Lucifer and turning into the black star. Okay, and so the ancient antiquity what they would do was they would take these frying pans. I've explained this before. They're called frying pans, and they would fill them up with water, and they would watch Venus when she's conjuncting with the sun for these 9 days to see if they could see her popping out, because they believed that was the birth of Jesus. Okay, that would be the return of Jesus at that time. So I've always kept that in my head, and I do believe that is really important. So now we see so much more eclipse symbolism. I'm like, okay, I got to pay attention to the eclipse, and I got to go map them out to see if Venus is in conjunction with the sun and the moon at the same time, right? So that's what I did. And I found them all for the next couple of decades. Okay, so we have a partial solar eclipse. It's not a full ring of fire. October 25th, 2022, and Venus is conjuncting that eclipse. But it's only a partial. So Venus is kissing the moon, but it's not quite on the ecliptic line. See, so it's a partial. But this is right close to Shambhala star, which is the heaven star, at the bottom skirt of Virgo. Now the next one where Venus is kissing the moon is a total solar eclipse, so it's a whole ring of fire, and that's happening August 2nd, 2027. And it's actually happening in the manger of Christ, Cancer. So I'm like, that is really significant, because, it's like the birthing of Jesus all over again, right in the manger. And this doesn't happen again until 2053. Okay, so it's like, almost 25 years later, on March 20th, okay, right on the tail of the whale, Venus kisses the moon in a total eclipse. Okay, so the other one I want to show you is the October 14th, 2023 annual solar eclipse. So it's like a full ring, right? And that it's not with Venus, but it's with Mercury. Mercury is your mind, and it's happening right on the Spica star, which is the Washington Monument. And Venus is close to Regulus, which is, where the pyramids, or actually the Sphinx, is aligning to. And that's the Rex star, which is alchemy. Okay, Venus is there on Leo. So lots of heart, lots of love. Okay, so that one's really significant, but we don't have the conjunction with Venus. Instead, it's Mercury. So it's still kissing. The moon is kissing Mercury, which is your mind. So that one's really relevant as well. And then the next one that I wanted to show you was the big USA eclipse, the huge one that's happening April 8th in 2024, that's going right across the United States, crossing St. Louis. It's actually coming up towards Montreal. It's gonna, it's huge, right? And so I really was trying to see esoterically where the placement is of the planets, and there's lots of conjunctions happening. So this is a really heavy loaded eclipse. Like I think they keep referencing this eclipse. Like honestly, I do. This is a huge one. And it's because of the conjunction with Uranus and with Saturn. What's happening here? So Uranus is conjunct Jupiter, which is like God of this realm and heaven of this realm, in Aries, which is the crown chakra, which is the Lamb of God. Okay, so like that's really loaded. Like, and that doesn't happen very often. This conjunction can be happening with an eclipse. And the eclipse is happening in Pisces, which is all to do with your soul and your spirituality, right? And then we also have Saturn almost in conjunct with Mars. That's the warrior within. And Saturn is conjunct with Mars on the water being poured out of Aquarius, which is Ganymede pouring out the nectar of the gods over the earth, right? He's dumping it out. He's not like handing it to Zeus. He's pouring it out on the ground. So that's really intense. Okay, and that's in 2024. And that's the biggie. But what is, which eclipse is it? The moon kissing Mercury important? Is this one the big important one because it's going right across the United States? Obviously, this is a huge one. And the fact that we have two conjunctions happening at the same time is huge. Or is it to do with Venus, which would be this year, and then again in 2027 on Lammas Day, Lammas Day is the day of the harvest, right? It's August 2nd. It's a cross-border day. So I don't know. I'm just putting it all out there, let you guys see what's going on. But, the eclipse seems to be a big one, tying into the door opening. Okay, maybe the blood moon is more to do with the return of the Lord, which is going to be like not pleasant, right? It's going to be not such a good thing, and that's happening in 2025. So I don't know what the timeline is, but all I know is we have to keep our eyes peeled and keep checking out symbolism because they're going to tell us. They're going to tell us, and it's part of the game. Is whether or not you can see the symbolism or not. So I hope you enjoyed that. It's go watch Westworld. It's an awesome show, and it really is all to do with understanding how to free yourself and letting go of your anger. That's really what the whole theme is all about. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to like and subscribe because that really helps my channel grow. And I'm kind of hoping that more and more people can click into this information. I think there's maybe some people out there that would be really interested in it. And other people, it's not their thing. But, it would be helpful if people could help share because there's only so much I can do. By the algorithms, people need to like and subscribe for the algorithms to pull my information up more for, recommendations. So anyhow, bliss to you all. Thanks for listening. Bye.